might be my most prolific year at the LA Times in terms of everything that I wrote about, everything that I covered.
I think we know why he's
the awards, proclamation for Congress, I was kicking ass in 2024, and yet I find myself completely uncomfortable. As much as I resisted even just having my name out there first on anything, the reality is I kind of run out of places to hide. I keep next level. There is no next level for me. I've worked at basically every major newspaper, every major television station, and I've worked in all the major cities. The next level is just me. I've built a career looking at the intersection of sports. NBA gets it right. Culture. Because you wanted to check my black card. In politics, I see it as a reflection of this will continue to be an extension of that.
If the money's no good or the location.
To find a comedian who believes that,
Welcome to the LZ Granderson Show. Welcome to the LZ Granderson Show. I am your host, LZ. Today is Thursday, July 31st, the last day in July, and boy, do we have a great episode for you. First of all, I have to tell you, in case you didn't know, I'm a huge country music fan. And no, it isn't solely based upon Beyonce, though I do love me some Cowboy Carter, but I actually grew up listening to country. My folks were part of the Great Migration. They were up and down the highway from Detroit to Mississippi and South Carolina throughout, most of my childhood. And so you get to a point on the road where either you're listening to the same cassettes over and over again, or you're listening to nothing, or you listen to the radio. And once you start getting in more rural parts of the country, well, the radio gets more and more country. And so we listened to country music throughout most of my youth growing up as we were going to visit grandparents and such. And so I love country music. And when I saw the BoykinZ, which is this sister act that does this country music infusion, I was just in heaven. Their first song that I heard was Fell in Love with a Cowboy. My good friend Audrey pointed me in their direction. I was like, what? Who the hell is this? And she let me know that her fiance is the manager of this group. And I was like, I need to talk to them right now. And so that's what this conversation is. Craig King, for those of you who don't know, is a beast in the music industry, especially in Atlanta, especially in hip hop. But this is his first foray into country music, and it was because of his country fusion that he felt more comfortable. And so we're having this wonderful conversation about authenticity, about what it means to be your genuine self in an environment that doesn't necessarily want you there, and how you manage that. Because let's face it, black folks in country music is still a thing, for folks in Nashville for whatever reasons. And, Craig is helping the young ladies of the BoykinZ kind of navigate through that, while also continuing to grow and expand their own artistry. It's a conversation that has a lot of, of his personal stories, and we talk about just all their success. For those who don't know, they were on America's Got Talent, and they got the golden buzzer this upcoming weekend, August 2nd. They're performing at the iconic Eddie's Attic in Atlanta, and they sold out. So, they're growing. Their audience is getting bigger, and I'm just so thrilled that Craig took time to talk to us about his strategy with the group and also his own background in music. Craig, brother, I am so excited to start this conversation because you got your hands in so many things that I'm passionate about. But first and foremost, congratulations, man. The BoykinZ, the rollout, American Got Talent, the golden ticket. Congratulations, man. That's got to feel so good just to see them blow up the way that they're blowing up.
man, thank you. And thank you for supporting us early on. You what they call an early adapter. You understood the vision long before others did. So we appreciate you too, man, for helping us along,
Hey man, I was simple man. I just looked and said, that good. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed to see.
Listen, it was a big look at that moment. It was a great shot in the arm. We appreciate you, LZ.
So, for the listeners who aren't familiar with the group's beginning, can you kind of walk us through how you got from, the golden ticket and America's Got Talent to the very beginnings of this group and you becoming aware of their talent?
Yeah, sure, man. This group was brought to me by a friend of mine, Maxine, over at STEM Women Atlanta. The girls were members of her organization, and Rap Plug Academy had done a partnership with STEM Women Atlanta. We were doing some activations throughout the community to bring music and tech
Mm-hmm.
and education together. And the girls were in some kind of way affiliated with that program. And so when she did her grand opening over in Summerhill, which is a part of Atlanta, she said, I have these girls I want you to meet. I'm like, okay, cool. I met them. Their parents were there. They were very nice, charming family. And, between finger food and playing pool and everyone cutting ribbons, I met them. And, it was something there. I felt it, but I didn't know quite what I was looking at because it was just a lot going on. It was a grand opening. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, nice meeting you. The mom kept talking to me. I was like, yeah, cool. And then, you know how it goes. There's a lot going on, man. But
Right.
then,
Yeah.
and this was like in November, so we were coming out of Thanksgiving and entering the Christmas season. And then I met them again. She had asked for me to meet them again, so I met them again, and that time I met them, they explained to me that they really were trying to go into sort of a country fusion space. They didn't tell me that the first time. And that really
Mm-hmm.
resonated with me, being a Nashville boy myself. I was like, that's interesting. It's tricky, but it's interesting. So, let's see what that looks like for you. And I said, but the one thing we can't do is play with that because there's a lot of history there. And if it's not, if it's not who you really are, let me get out the way now because I won't be able to go home faking the funk or
What, what,
something
what,
like that.
what, now, see, this is a really interesting sort of dynamic
Hmm.
because what you're saying is, are you going to keep it real, but not keep it real in the sense that most people are associated with, right? In terms of urban America, you talking about keeping it real in terms of what country is all about.
Keeping it real. And here's the thing. That's a very loaded statement, keeping it real, because keeping it real for you doesn't necessarily mean keeping it traditional, right?
Oh,
And so that's okay, because
what you trying to
real
say,
is
Craig?
relative. Real is real relative. You know what I'm saying? So I had to make sure that I spent some real time with them to see if this was really of their background or if this was
Mm-hmm.
cosplaying. 'Cause I could
Right.
not show up in Nashville with a gimmick that I know my people would smell straight through. And my background, in case you didn't know, was that Waylon Jennings was like my godfather. So I have a
Yes,
different kind of
sir.
history in that town, and a whole lot of folk know me through
Before you go too
Waylon.
much further, before you go too much further, you have to tell the story about Waylon and you in school because when the first time you told me, it blew my mind.
And I'm not only going to tell the story, I'm going to send you a photo today of Waylon, me, and my sister when I was 10, and he was holding my baby
Oh,
sister. I got to see you. My mom just showed me this yesterday. It cracked me up.
oh,
But no, man, listen, I was at school, and in walks Waylon to pick me up. His General Lee's car sitting out in front of the school. He walks in full on Waylon. I mean, hat, buckle, boots. He didn't give us laid back Waylon. He gave us show Waylon. Came into school and said, Craig King here? They said, yeah. Came and got me. Of course, he was Uncle Waylon to me. I didn't think twice about it. I just jumped into General Lee and we rolled off. But the school had another way of seeing that, man. It was pandemonium in there. It was a lot of confusion, a lot of eyes looking like what just happened. This old white guy with a long beard just walked in here and grabbed Craig King, and they left. So yeah, man, it was pretty funny to me, but that was how we rolled because my mom had to stay a little extra long that day with his wife to get her nails done. My mom and it was her nail tech, and we would always go to their home to spend, do all of that time doing her nails, which was Jesse Coulter's nails, Waylon's nails, many occasions Johnny Cash's nails, and Willie's Nails when they would all be at Waylon's house. So that was a normal thing. It just happened that my mom went overtime, so she asked Waylon to go come get me. Where's Craig? He said, Overton, I'll go get him. I'll get him. Let me go get him.
That is just, man, that story is so amazing, especially in today's political climate.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's just the amount of bullshit that we are still allowing to happen between races, between sounds of music, between artistry, between all of it, when the background are stories like yours, because your story is very, very unique, but I also know it's not the only one.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. And the reason why I know you're right is when his son Shooter had birthday parties, we'd be all over there in the pool and playing with all his toys. And it wasn't just me as a black kid. There were all types of kids over there. You know what I mean? So
Right.
they didn't see it that way. So it's always been strange to me to see this version of America and where it's sort of try to figure out what it's going to be now. Because man, when I was younger, that wasn't the thing.
That's
In fact, Lil Z, I think I mentioned this to you. Waylon used to come to my church to watch me play. He sat in the back, dude, with his wife, and they would just jam out with us at the church. Man, it was nothing to see Waylon at my church. And he was the only white guy in the church, but he was there.
But it's Waylon Jennings, so he kind of represent at least 10.
Yeah. Man.
That's just so freaking that's just a frustrating thing for me. It's like I stumbled across an old video that I made like years and years ago when I asked my husband to marry me. And I realized I used Randy Travis's I'm Gonna Love You Forever and Ever, Amen as the soundtrack. That was my jam.
Yeah.
That's one of my go-to karaoke songs. Like that's to me, that's perfect songwriting 101. Like just storytelling, everything that's right about country is in that song to me.
Well, what you just said is listen, people often talk about Nashville. The Nashville that I remember growing up was a lot more inviting. I spent time. I was putting a studio in one. I was building a studio down on Music Row, and the guys from Alabama, the manager, literally said to me, "You should put it next door to us." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, don't you do some hip hop and stuff?" I said, "Yeah, we do hip hop and rap. We do R&B. We do all." He goes, "Yeah, you should put it next to us, man. We want to hear some of that too." So it's just interesting how much different things have gotten over time. This guy, Buddy Killen, same way. He loves Outkast, but he's sort of was the biggest publisher for country music at Sony. But he's got a street named after him in Nashville and everything. He said, "My favorite rap group is Outkast," and so White Cat, man. But it's just, I don't know if I think those guys are still around. I just don't know if they're being drowned out. That's what I think. I think they're being drowned out. I don't necessarily think they're running from their truth. In many ways, they're just being drowned out, man.
That's really, really sad, man. But we started talking about this girl group, the BoykinZ, and this country fusion that they're trying to do, and you've managed to get them above the noise, so they aren't getting drowned out. And I'm assuming it's because of their authenticity. What was it about them that really convinced you that this is them, and they aren't cosplaying?
No, yeah, part of it was that they really they came in the door telling me that they wanted to fuse country music with some of the other things that they love because they love country, and they in their minds country was a very inviting space to live because it spoke to who they really were. So they wanted to make sure they got in that space, and then of course they love the Jackson Five. They're a family. They love the Jackson Five. They love Stevie. I mean, who's not gonna love Stevie? So they loved a lot of different things, which is why they wanted to make sure they were very clear that we want to be a fuse, but we want to fuse it with country because we love it. And it speaks to our values, which was another big deal for them. They wanted something that married up to their values and their musicianship. And so when I saw Naitiri play the guitar, I said, okay, you don't see this every day. Mm-hmm. And she's giving me some really good dominant 7 chords straight out of country. She's doing a lot of the things that I know make sense to country. And so early on, I introduced him to Winona Judd. I said, before I buy all the way in, let me let you talk to him too. Winona's my sister. I said, let you say hi, and let me see if they make sense to your brain. And she fell in love with them. She said, man, they're really really great kids, and I'd love to mentor them. And she talked to them enough to kind of get back to me and let me know what she thought too. And then after that, I just started recording them. I said, let's just see if they have the etiquette for a studio. And we started working on that and cultivating all that. I brought them to my home studio, and they started. It just came natural for them, man. So I took them to Nashville again, and they met with several other writers that I really loved, and one of them was Nathan Chapman, who did the current single that they performed on America's Got Talent, "Fell in Love with a Cowboy," and he's responsible for the first three Taylor Swift albums. So he's good at the earlier years. He understands how to nurture and mold. So I was like, hey man, I think if you get this and it makes sense to you, I think we may have something, because I trust your instincts with children. It's not, Taylor she got with him when she was in her teens. And so he's like, man, listen, this is stadium music. This is not to be played with. He didn't say the word played, but it's like, this is not something that you want to play around with. This is really serious. And so we started to take him real serious over here. And yeah, after that, man, got started getting calls from corporations. I think T-Mobile was the first to hit us up and say, we love what we see. We love to hear more. And the next thing I know, they're flying them out to Stagecoach as representatives. From there, man, just Nike and all these other organizations started calling and saying, we love this. But we still wanted to make sure we kept the sound right and not just became a corporate band or an influencer act. So, there's a fine line there. You're getting really, really popular, 1 million views a day, and you're trying to avoid being an influencer, right? But that's what's paying the bills too.
What's the difference? Because if you're an artist, isn't the art supposed to influence?
Yeah, you would want it to. The problem is that sometimes they handcuff you to this role of being an influencer, and then they pay you based on that, and they don't care about your music. They just want clicks. Because initially their clicks were coming from their little skits and their dance routines and all this other stuff. And so a lot of people were overlooking the actual talent and just thinking, these are amazing influencers. And so we were getting paid influencer money, which in some cases was a lot more than the artist money. And so it's that balancing act of how do you insist on being an artist in a climate where it's pro influencer, right?
How are you defining those parameters? Because if the algorithm, if you will, is manipulating towards one area in order to reach a certain number of people, aren't you incentivized to kind of feed the algorithm?
That's exactly what it is. You are incentivized to feed it. But what we did was we started demanding with, the brands, the companies, that if you want to use the girls, you have to use their music. You have to allow them to put their music inside the conversation. So we insisted on it with Cash App, with the Minions, McDonald's. We made it very clear we'd love to use our music in this deal. And they all agreed once they actually heard the music. They're like, "Oh, you actually are good." we thought you were a gimmick. Actually, we didn't know. So,
That's so sad, man.
it's crazy, man. Oh, we didn't know you were really real artists. We thought you guys were just holding those guitars as props. And so, but here's the thing though.
Maybe it all should just burn. Maybe it's good.
But the thing is, I have to be honest with you. If I didn't know better, I would almost think they were a gimmick, because they have such great chemistry, great choreography. They're a ton of fun online, so they've created a whole tribe just on routines, and so but the good thing is now those people are now turning into actual fans of their music. And a lot of that comes from America's Got Talent, because this is the first super stage they've been on where they were able to just truly stand out there and do original music in a world where most often people are doing covers. And
Mhm.
and America's Got Talent said, no, your EP is ridiculous. Perform it. Just give us one every night. Just keep them coming. We love it, you know. And so they're getting licensed, and their publishing is going up, and it's a fun thing to watch.
How much of this for you as a businessman is just an aspect of like when you started Rap Plug and Rap Plug Academy? Like this is how it's supposed to be. This is what you're teaching. This is what you know versus this is out of the box and I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
Well, it's actually perfect. It aligns perfectly with what Rap Plug and Rap Plug. You know, it's all about putting these young people in front of the best, allowing them to skip some of the steps here or there, killing some of the speed bumps. In some ways, putting them on the stairwell as opposed to the elevator. uh, with us, it's always been about how do we educate these young people and give them the reps that they need, but not the reps they don't need, if that makes sense. When I
Can
came in
you
the industry,
explain?
yeah, sure. When I came in the industry, listen, man, it's so easy to meet bad people when you have talent because everybody's uncle and auntie wants to manage you. Everybody, some of them mean well, they don't know what they're doing. Some of them are not good people, but they have all the glitter around them, so you don't know what's right or wrong. And so I've always said if I could write a letter to my 19-year-old self, it would be how do I waste less time with foolishness, right? And foolishness is, you know, people who don't mean you well. Foolishness is one bad contract can set you back 4 or 5 years of your life. Just take it right away from you and put you in a depression and a funk. You could lose a lot of good energy, a lot of creative energy just by being stuck in a bad deal. So for me, it was like, how do I curate a better ecosystem for the next Craig? And then I took that ecosystem and I gave it to the next generation. You got me? And so for me, it was about how do we get Rap Plug to become an institution for the dopest people in the music industry, and so that I can just give those people to the youth. Still got to do the work, but at least you get
Mhm.
to skip the bad people. Let's curate this group. And so I have about 260 pros in my ecosystem of Rap Plug just in this area. So I know if I were to have of the BoykinZ, or if I had any act, I would know exactly how to turn them up because I know who the right people are. And I also know who the not so right people are. So this was really almost perfectly designed, and the timing couldn't have been better for these girls because by the time they came into my life, I was just like, whoop, whoop. You know, I was just turning my people
Right.
on, like, hey, man, I got something, you need to check it out. And that's brands all the way across to musicians, to producers, to songwriters, to studios. People were so willing to help because I had already gotten a chance to weigh their appetite for new talent and who they really were as human beings. Most of my friends are in legacy mode now, so they really want to give back. So the timing of that couldn't have been better for the girls, man. You know.
What do you want to do next in terms of their progress? You know, if you're looking at your playbook from Rap Plug, what are the logical next steps you would like to see them go, and how are you executing that?
Well, for me now, it's we've been doing a lot of events over in Africa with Rap Plug, and we've broadened our horizon now with how we move throughout the continent. So we're now in about 8 countries in Africa, and what my goal is now is to not so much rely on Nashville to build these girls. I want to rely on the world to build these girls. I want to
Hmm.
make sure they've got I'm a piano versions of country. I want to hear Afro beats underneath a country record. I want to see things happen that galvanize the community because a lot of people told me that hip hop has taken as you know, man, it's taken so many turns. But
Yeah.
what we've been over indexing in here lately is a very specific type of female rapper. And my thing was, how do we counter that, right? How do we tell the female story, the African American female story, in a way that is less predictable? I'll just be nice and say it that way. And and
I was wondering how you was going to do that.
yeah, and so, I have a 15-year-old daughter, man. Listen, she's a large part of why I jumped on the BoykinZ. I was trying to figure out who were going to be their role models, who were going to be the young black females look up to person. What does that look like in today's market? And by me being in the industry for over 30 years, I'm like, if I can't figure this out, then I might as well get out of the industry, right?
It's so astonishing that you're saying that. I swear, yesterday I was having a conversation with someone, and I said to them, given the amount of hip hop I listened to as a young person, I know for a fact Public Enemy got me through college. By what they were talking about and what I was studying. I know for a fact that the amount that I was listening to in terms of Tribe Called Quest and sampling of jazz is the reason why I listen to Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane today. Like, I know these things, right? And so when I look at the landscape of music today, I go, oh shit. I'm not quite sure. I know what you're going to be taking out of this.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where this is leading. I know where hip hop led me. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure where hip hop is leading us now.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. I'm sure people will argue that it was destructive when we were younger. I'm sure there's an argument from someone, because there was always an OG saying, man, why y'all listening to that crap? I remember those things. Right. But he didn't know quite what I was listening for. So he didn't know how much range was in my playlist. He just heard some foolishness and said, y'all young people are ruining music. And he didn't know that we had PE in there too. He didn't know that we had De La. He didn't know that we had X-Plane. He didn't know that there were so many things we had. And so this world that we are in now, it's floating around, but what dominates it is based on pure capitalism. So it's a different time. And so for me, the girls would never see this the way I do. They know they have good family values and all that, but they're not doing it for the same reason I'm doing it. I'm trying to do something very different with them. They're just having a great time and telling their truth. So let's be very clear. But for me, it is about that 15-year-old upstairs. It is about the Rap Plug students. It is about the fact that we did a 4-week summer camp and the girls came to 2 dates. They came to the QC date where they talked about how they went from being influencers to becoming real artists. They talked about that so the kids could understand that, social media is really your bio, right? We had this whole conversation. But they also came to our Morgan Stanley Financial Literacy Day. And the girls even learned a ton on that day. So we talked about all that and how you plan for the future and how you deal with the trust and all that. So the girls being able to be at the summer camp mattered to me because guess what, bro? There weren't many artists I could call on to be a part of that because the parents would have been like, no. Right. You know what I mean? So these girls are a breath of fresh air in this climate. Whether they know it or not, they really are a breath of fresh air that I could take into any city hall across the world. And they would, the adults all the way down to the children would say, okay, no foul. You know what I mean? This works.
Right.
And so we used to have a lot more of that. We don't now. And so I'm trying to figure out how we can normalize it again. And also how to make money doing it so that people know it's commercial, to be okay, to be safe, you know what I mean? To be, I want to say clean, but you know.
Cosby Show, Sandra's going to college, Denise going to college. Like all of these images shaped our Generation X, particularly Black Generation X. And I know that, part of this is, curmudgeonly. Oh, we used to have an X, Y, and Z, but this is also a reflection of just looking at the trend culturally. And you're looking at the data, and the data says that there are less people going to college because of finances. The data says it's harder for people to buy homes because of finances. The data says our personal debt, not just the national debt, but individual debt that we're carrying is increasing. And so I'm looking at the trends and I'm asking myself, when I was thinking about X, Y, and Z, I had hip hop to help me kind of navigate. I had Black television characters to help me have these sort of conversations. And so one of the things I love about rap, what you're doing with the Academy is that you're taking what I got from pop culture that I feel is missing, and you're setting in a setting that is still entertainment driven, but nourishing academically at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you mentioned the Cosby Show, and I thought to myself, even the Fresh Prince in a way, because I was a part of that part of the conversation, even my earlier career working with Will, and a lot of people used to say to us when we would come out of off the set and go into the real world, so to speak, they would say, that's not what real black people would do. That's not how real black people roll. The Cosby Show, that's not really who black people are, And I'm thinking back on it now, and I knew they were wrong because we knew black people like this. But I
Right.
also think back on it and I'm going, were they right? Because it looks like they won out this argument, meaning
I
meaning
hear you.
there's a smaller representation of that type of black today than there was then. And you would have thought we would have evolved. But if you look at reality TV and you look at social media, you see less and less of those types of blacks, even though we know they're all around us.
Right.
The media
Right.
does not show those types of blacks, which is another reason why even when we've been offered probably 7 different TV shows for those girls. I haven't taken one. I turned down America's Got Talent 3 times, bro. Like I've
Right.
been very conscious about exactly how they're gonna be seen, because oftentimes people pursue them and it's all about exploitation, and they have no interest in the girl. It's just, oh, they're popping right now. Oh, their numbers are great. Let's get them in here and see what we can get. But then they introduce a conversation about love interest and boys and girls and fights and drama and black women drama. And I know y'all fight. I know your sisters, what you got. And the next thing I know, they're telling us how we should show
Right.
the world they are. Like,
Right.
people
Right.
already like them clean. Why do we have to go backwards?
Right. Create a
You know what I mean?
narrative because you're trying to sell a story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your thing is traditionally black women do these things on TV. This is the
Right.
model that always seems to work. So this is what we're going to feed the world. Come on, man.
It's trash, man.
It's total trash, man. And by the way, when I talk to the rap, I got, in Rap Plug Academy, I get a chance to talk to kids all day. And so I hear the rappers that they intentionally get on the microphone and tell lies because they are told by the
Right.
public that you have to lie to sell records, and their poverty is more important to them than their truth.
Right.
So they're
That's why
trying to get,
when you talked about the turning point and being driven by capitalism, that to me is like the Turkish delight, from the Chronicles of Narnia, right? Or Narnia, it's like you take one bite and you think you're in control, right? And then you get another bite and you think you're in control, and now all of a sudden, you realize you can't eat unless it's the Turkish delight, and you realize too late that you don't have control. And that's how I kind of feel a lot about corporations now when it comes to artistry. You take the bite, where it's like, they have a large platform, or they're offering a lot of money up front, and you take another bite and it's like there's tons of publicity and you're famous, and you keep taking the bite, and the next thing you don't know if you can survive without it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's very similar to the urge a young person feels when they're after school and they're about to fight. I remember fighting after school, and everybody talking about, Craig's gonna fight so and so after school. They already talked about it at the locker. I overheard it in the cafeteria. Today's version of that fight is everybody comes out with their cell phones. So even if you were thinking about not fighting, the moment you see
Right.
the cell phone in your face, you're like, now I can't look like a wimp.
Right.
And so now I've bought into a whole thing that I really didn't want to do because I don't want to look like this wimp. And that's what happens to our youth so often in music, is that they enter it going, it's just a game. These lyrics are just a game. Gang, gang. Red
Right.
rum, red rum. But all of a sudden, you're literally attracting gangbangers to the studio because they're like, yo, you talking about my set. Yo, you know what? We family. So we're going to be a part of your tribe. Nothing's going to ever happen to you now because we heard you say a sentence that reminded us of us. We're family now. And before you know it, they've completely abducted your child from your life. And now your mom doesn't even recognize her son. She's like, he was never a drug dealer. He was never a gangbanger. Yeah, but the gangbangers heard this record and they've claimed your son now. He's not
Right.
yours anymore. And he doesn't even know what he's doing. He's like, oh my God. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I have this newfound instantaneous credibility that I really didn't earn. I don't have any stripes, but I might as well get this tattoo now because I'm going to be rich anyway. I don't have to take a 9 to 5. So it's like you said, it's one bite after another. And before you know it, you're not even who you were.
Damn. So how are artists supposed to hold on to their artistry as the technology has enabled people to have their art out there quicker, but the oligarchs are still in control of the algorithm that lets the gatekeeping continue as we have always seen?
That's a great question, man. And it's very alluring. I was looking at all the playlists the girls are on now, and I'm like, okay, this is great. This is great. Just kind of looking at them. And with the playlist that they've gotten on because of America's Got Talent, which was all strategic for me, just putting them in Middle America's lap so we wouldn't have to chase
Right.
country radio, right? But with that being said, it's very alluring and it's hard. It's a hard thing to fight though when you look at how many female rappers and a lot of them are giving us garbage, but there are more playlist options for garbage. So they're rewarding garbage at a higher level. You know what I mean? So you have to constantly be thinking, and I've been in this a long time. I should be able to trigger an answer like that, but the fact is, you pull your skirt up a little higher, you pull your blouse down a little lower, and you talk more about some body parts, or you tweak a few things here and there on your face, you may get a bigger shot. And so this is where we all have to, as a community, lean in. I challenge us now to do more to support the people who are taking the less traveled road. I beg of us to lean in more because we say we want it. That's got to be an action word now. What want really means, because it's dangerous when you try to convince a studio that's making a film or a radio station that you're consciously doing something that you feel is more authentic to your artist when they know they've been told by their gatekeepers there's got to be some stereotype in this in order for us to back it financially. You've got to give us something black and stereotypical. We just have to have it. We have to check the box. You know what I mean?
It's so messed up, man. It's just like the Academy Award winning film American Fiction, right? You got to make you black. We're
Got
more
to make
black.
it black. Got
He's
to.
like, but I'm black. I'm
black.
No. You know what I mean, but black for real black.
But you know what I mean, though. Black though. Super black.
Back in my, years ago, man, when I first started, I guess in the performing arts in a professional way, I was an actor, and I was just starting to grow like my little goatee little thing. I was trying to do like the jagged edge look for like a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And,
come on, man.
And every agent, man, would tell me to shave before I walked through the door because they were convinced facial hair made me look more menacing. And they wouldn't just say, because I was black, right? Because my whole thing was, well, Tom Selleck made a whole career with half his face covered. Like, I don't understand how my little goatee is evil. But they would make me shave in that industry every single time, as if it was about the facial hair.
That is
right.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like we know what this is. We understand this game. That's why I'm so grateful for the way that you've been executing the rollout with these young ladies and the reception that they've received. And the new single is so damn hot. Like where did that come from?
Yeah, and that thing it was in a vault too. We had to go find that record, man, because they recorded it in Nashville, and then for like 4 months we couldn't find it. Couldn't find the creator, the producer. It was weird. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get an email. Hey, sorry, I meant to send you this, and it was that record. And I was like, wow, this really was a great record, So I'm glad we have it, and I think I think we're on to something here, and I'm really curious to see where this takes us. But like I said, I'm not going to limit this to the States. I think this is a bigger conversation because they do add dance, which is a culture within itself, the dance community. Beyonce's dancer, Jasmine, hit the girls up last night like, y'all are, we love this. We love, so I told them, I said, keep the dance thing in your life. It's a thing. Keep playing the instruments. That's a subculture within itself. The musicianship thing and being musical artists, that's a great, credible play. And then just keep writing. Keep telling your truth. Always go to the studio with a pen in hand. Don't just sit there waiting for a hit. Sometimes they'll come out of you. Your story hasn't been told yet. So I mean, listen, man, we're just trying to nurture them and embrace them being who they really are. It's a fun time for them, I'll tell you that.
Well, it looks like it's a fun time for you too, brother. Looks like it's a fun time for you too.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, last question for you. So you have Rap Plug Academy.
Yep.
You have a 3-decade career in this industry with all this wealth and knowledge. If you had a young person asking you, should I go to college or not?
Mm-hmm.
Should I invest my time and money in academia, or should I pursue something else in a different way? What would be your advice to that person and why?
Well, I'm the right guy for that question if you're going into the arts. If you're going into medicine, don't ask me that question because that's a whole different track.
I'll keep that in mind. If I'm sick, call Craig. Don't. He might give me some aspirin, but don't be asking him too many more questions beyond that.
Listen,
All right, got it.
man. Listen, when I went to Howard University, shout out to Howard. I went in with man. And when I went in with my piano scholarship, I got recruited by Ray Charles at 19 to be his organist. And I went to my professors and I said, what to do? Because I'm afraid to pass this one up and get off track though with Howard. And two of my favorite professors in my entire life said to me, get your butt out of here and go pursue that right now. And they said, we would whoop your, you know what I mean? If you stayed, because that opportunity may never come again. It was a small stint where Billy Preston, the legendary Billy Preston, was out of pocket for a couple of days. And they were like, the learning curve you'll receive from doing this will change your entire trajectory and your resume forever. Do not mess with this. And I immediately understood the assignment, and that's where my career really began. I really couldn't even get recalibrated to college after that. From there, it was Quincy and Will Smith and all this other stuff. I totally was out. But I say that to say, I think that the greatest way to learn in this business is hands-on. And I also think that if you're interested in this business, you should go to music school or go to some type of college that supports music because they understand the unconventional route and they will nurture that for you. And mostly, listen, even with Howard, I will tell you, it wasn't the education that I am the most proud of. It was the network I built at Howard. So I would also say that wherever you go to school or not, make sure you're embedded in the culture because those networking years, those early years where you're vulnerable and struggling and all of that, that's where you'll find the most fertile group of allies to build your career with. So I wouldn't tell anyone not to go to college, but I would tell them make sure you don't waste your money on college if you don't have to, because there are a lot of options out here. And one of the biggest things that we're doing with Rap Plug is we're taking our students to Live Nation, State Farm Arena, Morgan Stanley, LVRN, QC, all the top studios. They're meeting all the players through our internship program so that they can immediately enter the marketplace, be it broke or whatever. At least you're meeting people who are on the job, training you, teaching you, guiding you, nurturing you. And for me, that is my gift back to the community. That is how I see it. Giving back that way because we're bypassing the bad people and getting them right in front of the good people. And I want to scale that. I want to see that happening around the country. I want that to happen in Detroit. I want that to happen in
Sure.
Miami. I want that to happen in LA. I want that, and so we're partnering with some pretty large corporations to see to it that this can be replicated and create a workforce development model. Because I don't want to see young people go into debt that shouldn't have when they already had what it took and they just didn't know where to go with it. So that's where I am.
That's a smart place to be, man. That is a smart place to be. Craig, I am so appreciative of just all the work you're doing in Atlanta. I'm appreciative of the work you're doing, have always done in the music industry, especially country music, because we've been there. And it's just nice that, people get an opportunity to see these reminders, and not just been there in terms of musicianship, but just in terms of life. It's always baffled me, man, how you can be proud of your Confederate South and then not talk about black people in your music. Like, it just, I don't understand how you were able to kind of do that. But, thank you, brother, for just all that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for the time, man. This was good. This was fun, man. This was fun. We gotta do it again.